You're watching DW News. I'm Ben Fazul, let's take you straight over now to that press conference with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Solingen regarding the knife attacks over the weekend.
Ein paar Minuten später begonnen haben. Der Ablauf ist wie folgt. Zunächst wird Herr Bundeskanzler Olaf Scholz etwas sagen, dann der Ministerpräsident begrüßt und dann der Oberbürgermeister Kurzbach. Im Anschluss bitte ich um Verständnis, dass wegen weiterer Verpflichtung keine Nachfragen heute möglich sind. Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben das Wort.
Chancellor, you have the floor.
Das war Terrorismus.
This was an act of terrorism. Terrorism directed against all of us, against our life, against our lifestyle, trying to threaten all of it. And this is something that terrorists are always targeting as well. This is something we will never accept. Allow me, first of all, to say something about those who lost their lives and their families. We are mourning the dead, and we are hoping and fearing for the lives of those who are injured, and we're very pleased to hear that most of those who were attacked and injured are doing well. We grieve with everyone in this city and everyone in Germany who experienced this attack one way or another. We mustn't forget that this is something that affects all of us and touches all of us here in Germany. We just had the opportunity to speak to some of the emergency services who were involved in the operation, the law enforcement officers. It was extremely moving. They had to go through the whole event again and telling it to us. It was shocking for us as well. But let me say that there are good people who hold together in a terrible situation like this. There are people who do everything they can to save people's lives in a terrible situation like this. And yet, we mustn't forget it will take many days and weeks and months to process the traumatic experiences that they went through. And our thoughts are with all of them. And I would like to say, and I speak on behalf of the whole country here, we feel very deeply what an atrocious crime this was. It moves all of us. And it's not something we will forget. I won't forget it either. And what's important now is that we do what needs to be done. And this is why I would like to say in no uncertain terms that I am furious about this attack. And I speak here to the perpetrator. This attack must be tried to the full extent of the law, and I'm grateful that the police and law enforcement services and the intelligence services have worked together closely and are working together, and that we have now got this prosecutor in custody of the general public prosecutor so that this perpetrator can now be heard and tried. At the same time, we need to do everything we can to ensure that in this country that things like this do not happen, that we do everything in our power to ensure that we prevent such attacks in the future. And there's a great deal that needs to be done. It is clear that we will have to step up our weapons law with reference to knives, but many other types of weapons laws that need to be tightened up. I'm sure this will happen, and it will happen quickly. I believe that when the German government comes up with a draft law, it will go through the two houses, the two chambers quickly. We will have to do everything in our power to ensure that those people who do not have a right to stay in Germany are returned or deported. And the legislation that we have just approved, the upper and lower houses, the Bundestag, the Bundesrat, on a state level, on a national level, has expanded our capacity to act, to deport people. We've seen an increase of 30% over 2021 in terms of the number of people deported. It's actually gone up considerably, but we cannot rest on our laurels here. We will need to ensure that we implement the law more consistently, that we increase the numbers of people who are deported from the country who have no right to be here. Naturally, this also concerns the question of those people who arrived in other countries of Europe. First, the Dublin cases, as they are known, that those people who are in Germany be returned to their first EU port of call. We will look at how these returns can be done more efficiently. We will set up a task force to make sure this happens more efficiently. There will be some things we will be able to develop, some things will be dealt with Europe-wide, but we will be doing everything necessary to do this. And this is also true for people who have come to Germany irregularly. These numbers need to come down as well. And it is a good fact that we have heard recently that the border controls that we have recently established and made stronger will reduce the number of people coming to Germany irregularly. Again, there is plenty of work that needs to be done here. We will exert ourselves and do justice to these aims. I spoke about how angry I am, angry at the perpetrator. I'm angry at the Islamists who are trying to disrupt our peaceful coexistence here in Germany, the coexistence of Christians, Jews, and Muslims in Germany. We are a country that holds together, and we will not allow them to disrupt our peaceful coexistence. These are people who have hideous views, contemptuous views of human life, and we will do everything to prosecute them. I would like to follow on from what I was saying before and say just how moving it was to meet those emergency services people. These are amazing people that we have in this city, in this country. The first responders, they are the people who really show what we are made of. They dropped everything. They didn't think of their own security. They did everything to help people, and they will continue to have a heavy burden to process what they've been through, and we need to remember their help.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz fronting the press there in Solingen, the western German city that experienced knife attacks over the weekend in which 3 people died and 8 others were injured. And Mr. Scholz saying there that this was a clear act of terrorism. He said they're mourning the dead. His thoughts are with the injured. Let's speak about this further with our chief political editor, Michaela Küfner. What did you think about the tone set there by the Chancellor, especially considering the very first things he said when he came out was, these were his opening remarks, this was an act of terrorism?
Yes, well, I mean, he is trying to point out the singularity of what has just happened. Luckily, terrorist attacks are not something that commonly happens here, and he's treading on eggshells as he comes here because this is all happening within a political context. So for him, it was clearly important to strike the right tone towards the people of Solingen, the city that is really just trying to come to terms with what just happened, recognizing what the aid workers there on the scene, the rescue workers, did, and at the same time doing justice to the severity of what has just happened here, an act of terrorism that has shaken the entire nation. Notably, he takes on the issue of irregular migration and the causality of this terrorist attack and migration, because he's, and this is where he transitions into what is already happening, this ferocious political, it's almost going beyond a debate. It's more of a fight for the narrative right now here in Germany on what needs to happen next. And clearly he's trying to point towards what his coalition did following that attack on the 31st of May in Mannheim, where there was also a stabbing by a national of Afghanistan here in Germany, and a policeman died several days later due to his injuries. And that sparked a similar reaction, that there was a feeling of betrayal, that migrants, rejected asylum seekers here in Germany, are hitting or conducting such deadly and really terrible attacks in Germany. And after that, his own coalition agreed to make it easier to send back rejected asylum seekers, to deport also towards Afghanistan and Syria. But this faces practical and legal challenges, which are clearly not resolved. So he is trying to say, look, we've made steps in that direction. We're going to go further down that road. But his problem right now, also politically, is that he doesn't have much of, in terms of concrete results that he can show. Although he speaks of 30% more people being deported. Well, these are very low figures. This is not in their thousands. This is more in their hundreds. So this is something he is eager to stress, that progress is being made, but faced with the political challenge, upcoming regional elections, where we expect the far-right AfD party to come on top in both states that are going to the polls in the East this weekend. This is a very difficult line for him to take.
To take us back to the figure he quoted there, more than 30% over 2021 when it comes to deportees, he said we need to implement the law more consistently and talked about setting up a task force. Just explain to our viewers what that means. Well,
I mean, this is actually implicit criticism of the states, because it is the federal states here in Germany who are responsible for actually organising deportations of rejected asylum seekers. And this is where it all gets incredibly technical. This is also part of blaming who is to blame in this, because clearly this man, it's now been confirmed, the man who was arrested, the suspect killer here in Solingen, was due to be deported at the very least to Bulgaria, where he first claimed asylum within the European Union. And that would be in line with European regulations, the whole Dublin system, which is not effectively working right now. So the question is it because the state failed to send him back, or is it due to some kind of federal failing? And we're going to see more facts come to the surface here, but in sum, it's an inability of Germany to deal with these cases. This man was not someone who was seen as a particular danger. So this came out of nowhere. And that's also why I would like to stress what he didn't say. He didn't single out the question of radicalization beyond just stating that there are people in Germany who are radical. So we're hearing from some experts saying, look, talk about how are these people being radicalized. We saw an Islamist center banned in Hamburg just a few weeks ago, but clearly these so-called lone wolf attacks probably don't even need a center here in Germany. This person, we don't know for sure, but probably has been radicalized beyond such potential centres of extremism. So what is the state's response there? And then you're hearing from the police, look, just give us more people and give us more powers so we can search people on the streets. So there is no one issue that will, or one move that will really change the dynamic here. But this is a chancellor very much under pressure to present something like that. Really briefly, the other point he touched on was tightening weapons laws. Yes, this clearly isn't working. That's also the criticism from the opposition. That's something his Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser, is working on. Banning certain knives, the length of the blade is an issue here. Well, this perpetrator here, he used a knife that was banned at that very moment in time in public at this event. So clearly, in this case, it didn't work. Michaela, Küfner, thank you very much for bringing thus some clarity to this issue.